Hey basketball fans, this is Kevin Pelton. On the latest NBA Lockdown, Dave McMenamin and I talk about George Karl stirring up controversy, the impact of J.R. Smith's injury will have on the Cavs, and we chat with Mark Spears of the Undefeated.
This is The Right Time with Bomani Jones on ESPN Radio or on the ESPN app.
Hope everyone out there is enjoying the start to their holiday weekend. It is The Right Time with Bomani Jones. It's ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, Sirius XM Channel 80. Bomani is off again today. Dickerson and Hood, we are filling in. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. All guests on this show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Jonathan, we heard today from Joe Mixon. He's the star running back for Oklahoma. He's their leading rusher. Sooners will take on Auburn coming up in the Sugar Bowl. And in case you're unaware of what happened back in 2014, Mixon admitted that he punched a female student in the face and caused some serious damage to this lady. You know, his story at the time was that she had hit him first, and there was a lot of back and forth going on, and some improper language was used between himself and the female student and one of her friends. He was suspended for an entire year, but stayed with the program, and now obviously is one of their better players and probably will be drafted next spring to the NFL. But video of this incident has come to light recently that showed everything that went down. So Mixon today held a press conference where he, 2 years later, apologized to the female involved.
Basically, I'm just here, to basically apologize to Miss Molitor. Like I said, I'm here to apologize to Miss Molitor. I apologize to Coach Stoops. I apologize to, President Bourne, the AD, my teammates, most of all, my family. I let a lot of people down. Apologize to my mother.
Here is Mixon later discussing the punishment that he served for the incident.
I had 100 hours of community service, had counseling, still, to this day, seek it, for my own benefit. I just, whatever I'm trying to do, they gave me an opportunity and a second chance. And like I said, I'm willing to, do anything I could, to, make, myself better, as a person and, player on the field.
And finally, Mixon told the reporters, Jonathan, that he was told not to talk about what happened.
I had a couple, older legal team, to basically say, best to keep quiet at this point. I've been, told them, it's always best, I didn't want to wait so long, but at the same time, I was advised, to keep my mouth closed, and now I'm here, to this day, still trying to apologize.
Okay, there you have it. That's Joe Mixon from Oklahoma. This again kind of falls into the category of what we said on the show yesterday, that what else really needs to be said? Mm-hmm. You and I both know, and it's something that my father told me when I was very young. I'm sure your father told you. You have sisters. You have a mother, my mother. I tell this to my son. There's never a reason, no matter what, there's never a reason, unless your life is in absolute danger, that you would ever strike a woman. And that's just something that I feel, Jonathan, every person should know. And what else can you say? You can't punch a woman. He made a terrible mistake, and now he has to suffer the consequences. A lot of people think the consequences weren't severe enough. That seems to be something that Oklahoma's going to have to live with, and whomever takes him in the draft in the spring or signs him to their roster is going to have to deal with. You don't want someone's life to be over because they made one terrible mistake. But this is a bad mistake, and it's just something that just, as a man, you can't do it. It is something you are taught at a young age. You cannot strike a woman.
you are not supposed to do it as a man, and that should be something that's, as you mentioned, taught to you. But the other thing is that everyone's watching. You're doing this, and you can go to YouTube and see it for yourself if you are not squeamish about the impact of the young lady's head hitting the table. It's one of those things, Jeff, where you know that everyone's watching. You didn't care that people are watching. You didn't care that there might have been cameras in that restaurant that they went to. You just want to make sure that you put it out there that you weren't happy about the situation, so you took it out on her. And this is beyond sports. It's beyond the Oklahoma Sooners program. It's just that this individual, Mixon, wanted to be able to let it be known that he wasn't having it. So he wanted to take his frustrations out on a woman. And we have done shows around topics like this for years. You and I have been doing shows for well over 10 years, and you know my stance on this stuff. I'm very much cut and dry when it comes to domestic violence. I have zero tolerance for it. Because I have a mom, because I have a sister, I just don't have any tolerance for it at all. So, hopefully that he will learn from this and that, again, it doesn't ruin his life. But the point is that he has to understand what he did was wrong. Now, from the sports standpoint from it, with the Sugar Bowl right around the corner against Auburn, now we're wondering whether or not he should play or not. And the impact of tape. It goes to the Ray Rice story. We knew about the Ray Rice story, but until TMZ released the film, that really made an impact of seeing exactly what happened in that elevator. And so so for some, it changes things. For me, when you read about the story and you find out it's true, I don't need to see the video to know that that's wrong. But I'm wondering now how Stoops looks at this. Now that the video's out there, will he play in this Sugar Bowl, even though we already knew about the story a couple of years ago?
And Stoops already had the comment recently that if he had, the same type of information in 2016, that he would have probably acted differently. This is where I think people get a little confused when you talk about giving people a second chance. And I'm all for giving people a second chance.
Sure.
Unless you commit look, there's, of course, always going to be certain situations where you're not going to get a second chance in life, right? I mean, if you kill somebody, and there's certain things you're going to do, you would have to do not to get a second chance. But I'm all for giving people a second chance. But what people don't get is playing football is a privilege. Playing football, you don't have to play football to be given a second chance in life. And there would be those who defended Ray Rice, saying he deserves a team should sign him. Well, no. I mean, I'm very happy that it seems like Ray Rice has done a lot of growing from this. It seems like he's very much at peace in his personal life with his family. And that's wonderful, and that's what you want to see. You want to see someone take the necessary steps to correct bad things that have happened in their past. And that's great, and I hope he lives nothing but a happy and blessed life. But you don't have to play football. Those two things don't go hand in hand. So, again, and this is just theoretically here, the Sooners could say, well, you're not going to play now in the Sugar Bowl. And an NFL team could say, well, we're just not going to sign you. That doesn't mean his life is over, because football shouldn't be your whole life. Your life is about who you are as a person,
sure,
how you deal with your family, your friends, and how you contribute to society. So I just feel, again, that's kind of like, when I say I am in favor of everyone getting a second chance, if the Sooners would have said in 2014, you're gone, you're not playing for us again, I would have supported that. So it's everyone's interpretation of the matter here. But, okay, I mean, I'll take his word for it that he seeks counseling and has done the community service and was told not to talk. That's fine. I just still feel like there's probably a long way for him to go to really try to right these wrongs. I don't think that can just be kind of swept away after one press conference.
This has always been a problem, but over the last, about 10-plus years, this is something that's in the public eye. It started with the National Football League. As far as the sports realm is concerned, I think that domestic violence has been something that's been talked about for generations. What I'm saying is that because of the Ray Rice video and other incidents, before there was no video, you knew the story and said, boy, that's a really harsh situation for a man to put his hands on a woman, but the video tells a great story. To see it for yourself, you really immediately get the impact of it when you see it. And for Joe Mixon, this is the same story of a lot of athletes and things that are happening away from sports, where this is happening every day. A man's putting his hands on a woman. Sometimes there are repercussions, sometimes they're not. But for Joe Mixon, as you mentioned before, it'll be interesting to see how other teams look at him when he gets to the draft. He is very talented player, but as an NFL GM or an owner, would you want him on your football team from this one incident? Does that stop you from drafting him where you think he should be drafted based on this? I mean, it's an incident that happened. He was off the team. Now, does he learn from it? That's the big question.
Yeah, I probably would say no. I probably wouldn't bring him on board. And it's not because I don't believe, again, that he can't recover and hasn't, done certain things. I mean, he did miss a whole year of football. He's done the community service. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that there's no end in sight, or that there's no, that there would never be enough punishment for him to rehabilitate himself. That's not what I'm saying. I'm running a business in the NFL.
Sure.
So by your actions, you have put yourself in the situation, in the position where you're letting people decide your fate because of what happened to you off the field. Again, you're not entitled to play football. Playing football is a gift. Mm-hmm. You're not entitled to football. But if there's people out there that feel, hey, he's done enough, I'm convinced, he's sorry, I'm going to sign him. If there are those people, then so be it. But you have to know going in that by your actions and what you've done, you've made yourself very vulnerable, where there could be and probably will be a large group that say, I'm sorry, wipe my hands with this guy, I want nothing to do with him.
Yeah, he's got to get used to that, too. There's been so many doors probably open for him before this incident. He's got to get used to some doors closing in his face, and then he's going to have to deal with it. He will have to be able to fix his reputation from this. It'll always be attached to his name, but now what does he do moving forward? That's the big question. And again, he's not ruined from it. I just know that I can't stand domestic violence. I have zero tolerance for it. I think many people do. I just hope that his life gets better after this and really learns from this.
All right, we'll take some calls on Joe Mixon coming up next. 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-SAY-ESPN. Also want to talk some Cowboys here in this hour, what they should do with Tony Romo. Should he play a little bit in the final two games? All that's coming up next. It's Dickerson and Hood. We're in for Bomani. This is the right time on ESPN Radio.
How many teams could realistically win the Super Bowl this season? Would you take the Patriots and Cowboys or the rest of the NFL? Complete reaction to a critical weekend in the NFL Monday morning on Mike and Mike, 6 Eastern on ESPN Radio and ESPN2.
Bomani's off today. Dickerson and Hood in on the right time. It's ESPN Radio, ESPN app. You can always tweet us, our 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed, at TweetJHood, at Dickerson ESPN, at ESPN Radio. Before we get to your calls on Joe Mixon at 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-SAY-ESPN, we have some breaking news. This is from Rich Cimini, our great Jets reporter for ESPN's NFL Nation. Jets coach Todd Bowles was admitted to the hospital this afternoon with an undisclosed illness and did not travel with the team to New England. He is in stable condition. It's unclear at this time if he will coach tomorrow against the Patriots. If not, assistant head coach Mike Caldwell will serve as the head coach. Oh, it just keeps getting worse and worse for the Jets. Jeez.
See what Marshall's done to the coach? That's a shame.
It's the whole team, I think.
I'm just going to take some time off here.
Jeez.
So hopefully Todd Bowles is okay. You hate to see that, and also when it says stable condition, you don't know what it is. And, of course, you and I both don't know, but we hope that Coach Bowles is okay.
And there's also reports, too, if you like Star Wars, that Carrie Fisher is in critical condition. She reportedly had Princess Leia
Yeah.
She reportedly had a heart attack on a flight from, I think it was London to L.A., and she is, obviously, they're very concerned about her. So terrible this happens any time of the year, but especially with the holidays approaching. So our thoughts with both, even though you don't like Star Wars. But I still have to mention that.
I don't mind Star Wars. I saw it in the drive-in when it first came out. It was nice.
Did you really see the first Star Wars in the drive-in?
I did. Yeah, absolutely. Had the curtains and the bedspread to match as a young Star Wars fan.
I remember the only one I saw in the theater because I was so young was Return of the Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
That was the only one, and now I've seen them all since then. But that makes you wonder about the upcoming movies if everything's been taken care of.
Never mind. I think it'll be okay.
All right, 888-SAY-ESPN is our phone number. Your thoughts on Joe Mixon, who gave his public apology today to the lady he punched in the face 2 years ago. Oklahoma plays Auburn coming up in the Sugar Bowl. Mixon, of course, looks like he's going to play in that game and move on to the NFL next season. 888-SAY-ESPN is the number. Let's try Micah in Spokane, Washington. Micah, you're on ESPN Radio. Go ahead, my friend.
Hey, thanks, guys, for taking my call.
You bet.
You're completely off base with this thing because you keep comparing it to domestic violence. That was not his girlfriend. That was not his wife. And she assaulted him. He reacted. Give you some context. I'm 42, father of 2 daughters. A couple years ago when the FSU quarterback got into that altercation in the bar, I showed my daughters that video, and I explained it to them. This is a new day and age. You cannot go at a man you don't know like that. If you do, this is what's going to happen.
Micah, thank you for the phone call. And obviously, I don't give parental advice because I have a hard enough time raising my own kid. But I feel I am of the mindset that there is never an excuse for a man to hit a woman. Even if a woman, quote unquote, goes at a man, I'm sorry. I don't know, Jonathan. I don't think that's acceptable retaliation. I don't think if you're a female, you should ever expect to be hit by a man.
I know domestic violence to the definition talks about the intimate partner or someone that you are involved with. But to me, it's still willful intimidation. It's still physical assault. It's still battery or sexual assault. It's still under the same umbrella of a man hitting a woman or a woman hitting a man the same way, by the way. But it includes physical violence, and that's the key. That's what we're talking about.
I just don't think it's ever okay. I mean, I'm not excusing behavior. If someone instigates something, they're also wrong. But as a man, you are taught you do not hit a woman. There's no gray area here. End of story.
Well, I agree with you, but you see, Jeff, when we open up this can, for some, domestic violence is not a big deal. We've learned this, by the way, over the last 5 years doing these shows, that for some, it's about the country, or it's about who you vote for, or it's about your neighbor, or stuff like that. That's a hot button for some. And for others, it's about domestic violence. But for some, this is not necessarily on the radar. And for me, it always has been. And I just always think that there, as you mentioned, no gray area with this.
All right, let's try Anthony now in Pennsylvania. He's on ESPN Radio. Anthony, what's your thought on Joe Mixon?
Hey, guys. Just want to say thank you for accepting the call.
Yes, sir.
I kind of want to piggyback off what the guy earlier said. And, I mean, I know that men are not supposed to hit women. And I totally agree with that, but it's kind of unfair because let's say I don't know Joe Mixon personally, but let's say this was a man that he got into an issue with, and the guy, because if I looked at the video and she pushed him and then she grabbed him by his neck and then slapped the hell out of him.
Yes, she did.
And then he punched her. Which he punched her like how a man would punch a man. I mean, like guys, we all got to gauge in on how much force we're supposed to use in what situations. He definitely hit her emotions, but I think it's unfair because she also assaulted him too, and she was extra aggressive. And I gotta disagree with what you said earlier when a woman should never expect to get hit by a man because I mean she was overly aggressive. If she would have pushed him, I don't think he would have hit her.
But I know what you're saying, Anthony, but you got to walk away. I mean, I know that, look, when situations go down, sometimes it's emotional. Could be late at night. Who knows where you've been and what you've been doing before it all comes to a head. But you just have to remove yourself from that situation. That's it. That's it. And I will stand by what I said. I don't believe a woman should ever fear about being hit by a man. That shouldn't be. I'm not encouraging women to go after guys in that aggressive manner. But my point is, as a man, you cannot retaliate in that fashion.
No, well, again, people see this as a gray area and thinking that, well, it's okay if she hits me, then I have full autonomy to hit her back. Well, this is what I'm talking about, Jeff. It's to me, it's not even about culture. It's not about upbringing. It's just about what's right. And so the idea that you're going to go tit for tat for someone that you know that you could beat up, and that's cool. Well, I mean, for some, that's great. It's just not for me. I just know that you and I were not raised that way. But to call our show to say that there's some kind of gray area with it tells me a lot about you.
Well, maybe we'll get back to this in our final hour. We got to get to Jacques Taylor in Dallas coming up next. The Cowboys have an interesting dilemma here with Tony Romo over the final two games. What do they do with him before the playoffs begin? Do they play him a little bit? Not at all? We'll ask JJT that question coming up next. It's Dickerson and Hood in for Bomani on the right time. It's ESPN Radio.
ESPN Radio Sports Center.
I'm Doug Brown with breaking news. Jets head coach Todd Bowles is in the hospital right now with an undisclosed illness. The team doesn't know if Bowles will be able to coach against the Patriots tomorrow in Foxborough. Texans running back Lamar Miller is questionable for tomorrow night's game against the Bengals with an ankle injury. And Ravens corner Jimmy Smith is out for Sunday's game against the Steelers with a sprained right ankle. Oklahoma running back Joe Mixon publicly apologized today for punching a female student in the face back in 2014. Surveillance video of that incident recently went public. Mixon apologized to the victim, to the university, and to his family. Cavaliers guard J.R. Smith had surgery today for a complex fracture of his right thumb. He'll be out from 12 to 14 weeks after getting hurt Tuesday night against the Bucks. The Cavaliers host the Nets tonight. Mavericks forward Dirk Nowitzki will play tonight against the Clippers. He's missed the last 14 games for Dallas with a strained right Achilles.
Custom Ink makes it fun to design custom t-shirts and hundreds of products for all of life's events. Use the Easy Online Design Lab for amazing artwork and fonts, your designs, quality products, free shipping. Start designing at customink.com.
This is The Right Time with Bomani Jones on ESPN Radio, ESPN app, Sirius XM Channel 80. Bomani's off again today. Dickerson and Hood filling in. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. You can get in touch with us through our 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed at TweetJHood at Dickerson ESPN. Great lineup of NFL games on Saturday. Then Sunday, it's the Ravens and Steelers. Monday, it's the Lions and Cowboys, who have clinched everything at 12-2. But there is that question, Jonathan, what they might do the final two games, specifically at quarterback. Is it a good idea to give Tony Romo a little bit of work before the playoffs begin? So let's get more on this. We go out to our Shell Pennzoil Performance line. Jacques Taylor, our great ESPNDallas.com columnist, joins us here on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. So, JJT, what do you think? What are you feeling down there? Is there a sense that maybe Garrett gives Romo a little work the last 2 weeks in the event that something happens to Prescott as far as his health goes in the playoffs?
I spent much of 4 hours arguing with my own radio partner, J-Dub City, about that very topic this morning. Because I'm like, I don't see what all the big deal is about getting my backup quarterback ready for the playoffs. I don't think any other team in the NFL is sitting around going, I got to get my backup ready for the playoffs. Now, you could argue that, yes, their backup is different because Tony Romo
some of the other notable passing records for the Dallas Cowboys. But he also is a guy who hadn't played in more than a calendar year. I think I poked around today, talked to a couple of these people in the front office, and they're like, we don't know. We'd like to see him get a little rust in our stock, but not at the expense of Dak, because every snap that Dak gets is another tree that might help him down the road in the playoffs. With him being a rookie, everything's so much important. I don't think you'll see Romo at all in Detroit. Maybe you'll see him in the second half of the finale against Philadelphia, and then maybe you won't. I don't really have a good feel for it yet. The best thing about the Cowboys right now, one of the reasons they're 12-2, is Jason Garrett is a great coach for a good team. And what I mean is he doesn't let his guys get distracted. I mean, he's really anal returns about this whole, we got to focus on every walkthrough and live in the moment and don't think outside this moment. And so those guys are really locked in on Detroit, man. And I don't really think they have a feel yet for what they want to do with Romo.
Well, Jacques, my partner is not necessarily 100% on board with the Cowboys, not sure if they are going to be a viable contender in the playoffs. So,
after that butt kicking that game, the Bears, he still got thoughts.
Listen, that's the
Bears.
I know
it was a long time ago, but they just road graded the Bears.
That's the Bears. I mean,
we get on national show, we forget the local stuff, huh? Okay, I see how y'all roll.
I mean, Jacksonville beat the Bears. I mean,
exactly. So what you're saying, Jacques? I mean, really? So, Jacques, the question is, what makes the Cowboys on the field, in your view, a viable contender for the Super Bowl?
Number one, everybody in the NFC is flawed, so they've all got some flaws. Number two, they got the most dynamic offense in terms. They could beat you in running the ball. They can beat you passing the ball. They're the most balanced offense. And we haven't seen anybody yet stop that running game. I guess the Giants did it in the first game, but since Zeke got rolling against the Bears, we haven't really seen anybody stop their running game. And, they had some problems with the Giants, and they had some problems with Minnesota, but that was really a case of them committing some penalties and having some negative plays that got them behind the chains. But they controlled the down and distance, and they're in 3rd and 4, 2nd and 6, you got no chance, man. And the defense, while not great by any stretch, plays with an unrelenting effort, and they get a lot of hats on the ball. And ironically enough, their defense has done a great job stopping the run. They're only giving up 3.9 per carry, only 5 rushing TDs this year. And if they get ahead of you and you have to be one-dimensional, as the Bears found out, they'll road grade you.
Jacques Taylor is our guest here on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. Is Romo done?
Don't be mad at me, bro.
I'm not mad at you. I mean, listen, all I do is rip the Bears, so it's not like I feel like any sort of allegiance to them. But
you ain't studying nothing, Jacques. Don't worry about the Bears. Just move on now. We got all these affiliates now. We're trying to keep our jobs. Stop talking about Chicago.
Yeah, we're trying to keep listeners here, not chase them away by talking about the Bears.
These bills don't pay themselves, so don't interrupt with that Bears talk. Go ahead.
My bad.
How much does Romo have left? If Romo goes someplace else next year, what do you think? I mean, is he still maybe not a top-tier quarterback, but can he still be an effective starting quarterback in this league someplace else?
Yeah. The question with Romo is not talent. The question with Romo is health. If he's healthy and he's not broken down because his back is got him out of lineup, then he'll be fine. I think he can still play. I mean, I was a Romo guy up until probably about week 8 or 9, and then they got so deep in the season, I was like, it just doesn't make sense to bring him back right now. But when last we saw him playing a full year, 2014, it was second team All-Pro. In 13 and 14, he had 65 TDs and 19 picks. He can still sling it. The only question will be, and we won't know until he plays, is that he'll get up to the line of scrimmage. You will not be able to fool him. He'll know exactly where to go with the ball. The question will be just like a boxer. Can he let them hands go? And we don't know until we see him play.
Jacques, what was the time?
That's a good analogy, though, huh?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That was good.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially.
Give a fellas some credit then, man.
Great analogy, Jacques. Outstanding.
I appreciate you, Doc.
As we do a radio segue to Dak Prescott. So when did you know, when you're watching him, Jacques, when did you know Dak Prescott turned the corner as a quarterback, someone that the Cowboys could really depend on?
Hey, man, in many camps, I was like, y'all got to watch Dak, man. He is doing that thing. Mm-hmm. I think he can take Romo's job. Y'all need to watch Dak, man. I was saying that in many camps. Okay, not really. Okay, I'm just having some fun. I don't know. I would say like a lot of people, I was impressed in the preseason when he came in against Seattle when he wasn't supposed to play and he turned in a good performance. But I wasn't really like, you know what? This dude's got something to him. Probably, maybe not until Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. That's when they came back 35-30. They came back twice in the last 2 minutes. But here's the thing I like about Dak, man. Dak is very self-aware, meaning when he played bad against Philadelphia, bad for 3 quarters. He played really good in the fourth quarter and overtime. And immediately after the game, he was like, my footwork was jacked up. That's why I didn't play so good. I'm going to spend this week working on my footwork. I'll never play like that again. Next week he came out, footwork was great. He played great. Cowboys won. They played against the Giants immediately after the game. You know what, man? I spent way too much time trying to get the big play. I should have took the stuff underneath, let the big play come to me. I'm not doing that anymore. Next week, he takes the big stuff underneath, takes the big plays when they're there. He's 32 of 36 against Tampa Bay, leads the Cowboys to a win. So he's very self-aware, has a good sense of what he needs to do to succeed. And then he understands his job is to disseminate the ball and let the other guys make big plays for him. And I've been saying this quite a bit. It's not the big plays that he doesn't make, it's the bad plays he doesn't make that's the difference. Romo will make a lot more plays in the passing game. Romo will make a lot more mistakes. Dak, 20 TDs, 4 picks. For this team that wants to control the ball and play field position, perfect.
Thank you, JJT, and enjoy next year when Jay Cutler's your backup quarterback. I wish you nothing but the best, okay?
Yeah, you stay warm in Chicago, both of y'all, man. Take care.
All right, that's Jacques Taylor from ESPN Dallas joining us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line as that became somehow Chicago versus Dallas. But I liked it. Oh, that was fun. What can I say?
That was a great battle between you two.
It was one-sided.
Exactly.
ESPN Radio has you covered for bowl game action. Tune in tomorrow for the Hawaii Bowl. Coverage begins at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN Radio, ESPNradio.com, and the ESPN app. Here's the question right now in Detroit, aside from, the Lions trying to make the playoffs here. Do the Lions root for the Browns to win a game, or does misery loves company? Let's talk about that coming up next. Dickerson and Hood in for Bomani. It's the right time on ESPN Radio.
5 division titles still up for grabs. 18 teams still alive for the final 8 available playoff spots. Reaction to a critical weekend in the NFL Monday morning on Mike and Mike, 6 Eastern on ESPN Radio and ESPN2.
Dickerson and Hood sitting in for Bomani on the right time, ESPN Radio, and the NBA is on ESPN Radio. Tune in Christmas Day as the Warriors take on the Cavs, followed by the Bulls Spurs. Presented by Tissot. Coverage begins Sunday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time on most ESPN radio stations.
Now listen you can't do that within the promo. You're saying it's a bad game within the promo.
Well, I mean, Warriors-Cavs is awesome.
It is awesome.
Even though J.R. Smith is going to miss 12 to 14 weeks with his thumb fracture.
That's not the main event.
That's awesome. Then you got the Spurs. Just an awesome organization. And the Bulls. Like people are surprised all of a sudden that the Bulls aren't what they thought they were going to be. Like, no kidding. No kidding. What kind of big three is this? Dwayne Wade has played pretty well this year.
Mm-hmm.
Rajon Rondo and Jimmy Butler. Come on.
Yeah, Rondo's already been suspended once. And
he's already popping off.
As a company man, let me help this matchup. The Bulls have already defeated the Spurs this year, 95-91. Can the Spurs get their revenge? Find out on Christmas Day as the Bulls take on the Spurs on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Thank you, company man.
Company man.
Christmas bonus is in the mail.
Big C on my chest. Company man. How about that, Dave?
If you played for the Lions in 2008,
mm-hmm.
Are you going like the 72 Dolphins? Are you kind of like, but like the opposite? They always root for someone to lose. Do you root for someone to win? And that's what they're doing in Detroit. They don't want the Browns to go 0-16 because the experience for them was so horrific that literally the guys who are still on the Lions, only 2 guys that are still on the team that were on the 2008 team, Rod Marinelli's 0-16 squad,
mm-hmm.
they don't want the Browns to have to live with the shame of being such a loser and going 0-16. And there's something admirable about that, isn't there? Like, you would think that they'd be like, oh, yeah, we want someone else to be 0-16. You know, come on, misery loves company. But these guys actually don't want to have anyone else go through that pain. I respect that about the Lions.
Well, that's fine. But, I mean, so Dan Orlovsky's okay with being the ultimate loser, 0-16. He's okay with that for his time with the Lions. No, actually, if I'm part of the Lions, I want the Cleveland Browns to go 0-16 because I don't want people to remember us. I want people to remember, right now in 2016 that the Browns went to futility. Why would I want that record? Hey, I was part of the worst team ever. As we talked about the other day, back in the 70s and 80s when that was on the old VHS on the NFL Follies tapes, to say, hey, look at this. Look at it. That was crazy. Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Hey, they can't win a game. Oh, look at them. They're fumbling the football. And the best receiver on the team, Chris Berman. Yeah. So, I mean, that was great at the time. But I think now that if I'm a Lion, I want the Browns to go 0-16.
I don't know. I'm kind of with the Lions. I just
why?
It's because it's depressing. I mean, I just you have to live with that forever.
So?
Do you really want other people to have to go through that?
Well, win a game. How about that?
Well, right. I mean, it's not like it's just going to happen automatically. They actually have to go out and win a game in the final 2 weeks. Maybe it happens. Maybe it doesn't. I just think it's kind of a little refreshing to hear the Lions have such a positive spin on what happened in 2008.
All I can tell you, 538 says that the Browns very well could go 0-16, a 32% chance of getting there.
Yes.
A 32% chance.
And then we will be at the parade when they go 0-16.
Oh, no, the parade. Lebertard Show is funding that. That's going to be great.
Are the Packers going to run the table and win the NFC North? Is Aaron Rodgers going to be right? That's next. Dickerson.
First, the Warriors broke records and broke through.
The Golden State Warriors are the 2015 NBA champions.
Then, the Cavs rebounded and brought a title home.
Cleveland is a city of champions once again.
A finals rematch. Warriors, Cavs, 2:30 Eastern, Christmas Day on ABC.
College football lives here. One win from a perfect season. MAC champion Western Michigan sets their sights on Wisconsin.
Wow!
Can they knock off the Badgers and one of the nation's fiercest defenses?
Throw downfield. Oh, and it's picked off. Stepped in front of the receiver. Intercepted.
The Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic. Coverage begins Monday, January 2nd at 1 Eastern on ESPN and on ESPN Radio. Oklahoma has won 9 straight, the Big 12 title, and are ranked 7th in the nation. 14th ranked Auburn awaits. The All-State Sugar Bowl, Monday, January 2nd at 8:30 Eastern on ESPN and on ESPN Radio.